What is going on, Comic Fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined by comic creator Mark London. Welcome to the show.
Greg, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, I'm thrilled to talk to you. You've written some fantastic comics, and we want to hop into those. You're CEO of Matt K Studios. Like, there's just so much. You're so involved in comic community. How did you get into liking comics? Like, is that something that's always been there for you?
I think so. I think so, but it's been more the storytelling aspect of
Yeah.
things. Like I grew up in the 80s, so I was exposed to a lot of animation. I was exposed to a lot of movies, a lot of books. And then I remember, actually, I remember my first comic book vividly, which was Silver Surfer 53, which is like Death to the Emperor. And then I was completely hooked, and the way the sequential art was working, and for me at least, I mean, it clicked. It did something to me. And then as I continue reading it, I mean, I think that I was spoiled early on because that's when the Infinity Gauntlet saga was taking effect. So
Yeah.
then I was really pampered because again, you got this massive crossover with all the heroes of the Marvel universe, all thrown in against Thanos, and well, that's basically the movie that everybody got so excited for, which is like okay, Endgame and Infinity War. So I guess that when I started getting exposed to Silver Surfer and all the Marvel characters, I was really down a rabbit hole, and then I started then jumping ship, and I went to DC, and I started reading Swamp Thing, and I started reading Batman, and my God, I mean, it just like opened so many doors for me,
Yeah.
and also because back in the day we used to have this. Some people are younger, so I don't know, but back in the day, because we didn't have the internet, we had this very cool source of information called the Wizard Magazine, and Wizard Magazine was basically your go-to place to actually like get all the information. And again, and you would get like the big two, you would get what the indie creators at the time were working on. So for me, it was just like. I was hooked. I was hooked, Greg.
Yeah.
That's in a nutshell. I mean, I can get so excited and talk about my comic origins, but just to
Yeah.
for
So how did
for
that
for
then?
the for your listeners and viewers' sake, I'll keep it short.
I appreciate it. No, it's I love to see kind of like everyone loves a good superhero origin story. I love a good comic creator origin story. So, well, let's dabble into that a little bit more. How did you get into then? Because you said your love for storytelling, the transition from comics of liking comics to saying this is something I want to get involved in comics.
I think that also a passion of mine because like a lot of us, I mean that we have a 9 to 5, and then that we decide to make a living doing things that apparently are going to give you they're going to put food on the table, and not so much in the creative arts or anything like that. But I always had this little itch that I really wanted to write comics, that I wanted to create worlds, that I really wanted to I guess write characters. And one time I was talking or nagging my wife, and I was like, "Listen, this is something that I really, really want to do with my life because I don't want to wake up when I'm super old and be like, listen, my life just flashed before my eyes, and I didn't do what I wanted to do." So I kind of told her like, "Listen, I want to put some stories, pen to paper, just kind of like do like a fan website or something. If things get picked up, I mean, fine. If not, I mean, it would just be something on the side." So then she gave me the okay. She was like, "Okay, do it, and stop nagging me because you're gonna drive me crazy." So I was like, "Okay, you said yes. Okay, you're on board." So I started like putting together like a small team of designers and getting in touch with some artists, and he was like, "Okay, here are the scripts. Why don't we do that?" But somebody that was putting the website together, he told me, "Hey, listen, I think that you have something more here. I think that this is something actually has legs." So I was like, "Okay," and we started building like this website with content, and that's how Mad Cave Studios was born.
Oh, that's so cool. That's I love it because I've been a huge fan of stuff that Mad Cave has been putting out. I've had a lot of creators actually of Mad Cave on the show. So it's high time
Hmm.
I had you on. But real quick before we get into stuff, one last thing I wanted to ask you about Mad Cave.
Sure.
This idea of you guys have as a company the writer and artist search, kind of like the spotlight where you guys have like the winner.
Yes.
Where did that idea come from?
Well, we have this talent search every year, and
Yeah.
this is going to be actually our sixth year doing it. Because it's something that we felt that we know how hard it is to break into comics. We know how hard it is to get noticed, and for me, it was a way to give people a chance that were so talented, but unfortunately, if the big two or you don't have the financial capacity to actually make it something viable, that you're really never going to see, nobody's going to see your work, and it's going to be harder. So part of the Mad Kid talent search, the idea behind it was give something back to the community and try to expose some people, some diamonds in the rough, if you would. And hopefully what they do with that, I mean, moving forward, is it's really up to them. And we've seen a few success stories, winners of the Mad Kid talent search, that actually have gone and work with other publishers and are really sticking to it. So for us, it's we're proud papas, kind
Yeah.
of way, like when you see that happening. But yeah, but in a nutshell, Greg, it was just giving something back to the community, because again, we love it so much that we just wanted to give people a chance.
Yeah. And yeah, and I love it because, like I said, I've gotten exposed to a lot of great stories and great creators through that, and it's just as a cool concept to do. So, kudos to y'all, props. But I got to talk to you about
Thank you.
your new series that you got coming out, Hunt, Kill, Repeat. I got to check out a preview, and I've loved a lot of your stuff. You Battle Cats, Wolvenheart, like this
Mhm.
might be my new favorite thing because this is fantastic. So let's talk about it. If people haven't gotten the preview Hunt Kill Repeat yet, what is that about?
Well, I like to pitch it as a Kill Bill, John Wick meets Clash of the Titans. But if you haven't, if you haven't seen those movies, or you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's a revenge story. It's a revenge story with all the widescreen, bombastic, full of action story, but it also has a lot of heart, because it's for me. One of my most precious things in life is my wife and my kids, and sometimes I get into that position of being like, okay, what if I would lose them? What if if for some reason, I mean, they get yanked out of my existence? So part of the motivation with Hunt Kill Repeat was actually do something, again, spectacularly visually enticing, but also grounded, and really try to touch a few fibers here and there with really what is most precious to you and what happens when you lose it.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it makes sense that you say this idea of kind of where did this idea resonate of and start from of that it's like, man, if that happened, what would to the people closest
mm-hmm,
to you, what would you do? And
mm-hmm,
it comes
mm-hmm.
through in issue 1 pretty hardcore.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, I wanted to write this like revenge story.
Yeah.
And when I pitched it to Mad Cave Studios publisher, which he's also my editor, Chris Fernandez edits all my books. I pitched it to him, and for some reason, we started talking about our shared passion for Greek mythology and the gods and everything, and I kind of like, okay, I don't know. I guess that I took the revenge story and I took our love for mythology and kind of like crafted the whole story behind what we had discussed in that meeting.
Yeah, and it makes sense though too. Earlier in the interview, you talked about how you love world building, and I see you've laid the groundwork here on this first issue. Like the world you built with Battle Cats, and I mean, what that's like 3 volumes. Like it's a massive world, and the world
Uh-huh.
that I can see like the foundation of what's being built here, where so many different routes you can go. How important is it for you to find these universes and these worlds to create something new like that?
That's a great question, but the thing that for me is that I don't know how to do it any other way. And I
Yeah,
know that that sounds a little bit like, because as a first time writer, 8 years ago when I started working on Battle Cats, and Midnight and Knights of the Golden Sun and Wolvenheart. Like for me, it's impossible to think small, right? I mean, it just it gets big so quickly, but I think that is because of of how I was exposed to all this material growing up, which is like, okay, you really want the world, and again, you really want to get submerged in something which is like, uh, what's the as a sci-fi writer, you're told like, okay, what is you're allowed one lie. So what's the big lie with
Yeah.
everything that you're putting? So, but that lie, it has to be like enhanced. Like, what's the backdrop? What's really going to be enticing? Because at its core, there are only like 7 types of stories that you can tell, and by definition, it's like, okay, what else are you going to bring to the table? Because a lot of stories are like, yeah, I heard that a million times. Well, yeah, but not by you. Not by this person that is cycling in a different sense with his fears, with his wants, his needs, everything. So yeah, for me, like unfortunately, like I guess that I never learned to do it any other way, which drives a lot of people that I work with crazy because they're like, no, 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 keep it grounded. I'd be like, I don't know how. So yeah, but again, I guess that I have a lot of fun
Well,
with that.
Mark, I mean, it makes sense. Like you literally just talked about how you're like, I want to write a comic, and you're like, oh, let's just make a company. Yeah, publishing company. Most people are like, let's
Yeah,
just
I
start with a
mean,
comic first. You're like, let's just create a
yeah,
magic
that
universe.
actually that actually explains a lot. You're right. You're right.
But I'm so grateful that you did. Talking about this book, um, the team that you have on this, like Russ Wooten on letter, like Lee on color, like how'd you create it?
Mhm. I guess that every year with Mad Cave, we try to get better at everything that we do, and I think that this was not going to be the exception. I mean, when I sat down with Chris Fernandez and we were like, okay, we're going to do this book, I told him, listen, I want the best people possible working on this book, and he has a great eye for talent. So does Mark Irwin, our vice president, because he's been around like for 30 years. He knows everybody. So Chris basically just uh, came across Francesco's work. He's the penciler, and I was blown away when he showed it to me. I was like, dude, this is really the right guy for the job. His pencils are so strong, but then we needed, just to highlight if that was possible, a very strong inker. So Mark Irwin, he really knows Mark Deering, that has worked for DC, Green Lantern, all this stuff. I mean, Mark has also a lot of chops in the industry. And when we brought him on board, he was like, "Yeah, hell, I'm down." And I started seeing the finished work, and I was like, again, wow, this just gets getting beautiful and beautiful. And then Chris reached out to Lee, which has been also the colorist for those that don't know on Deadly Class, and he's such a masterful, exactly.
Yeah.
He's such a masterful colorist that I was like, oh my god, I mean, this doesn't get any better. And then Russ was actually working with us on another Mad Cave books, and Chris reached out to him and, hey, you also want to do Hunt Kill Repeat? And he was like, okay, hell yeah. And that's how we got the team together.
And as I'm reading, I'm like, this just pops. And it was, and as soon as I read the credits, I'm like, this makes sense. Like you brought
Mm-hmm.
out the best of the best for this. And I'm like, man, I'm
Yeah.
so excited to see this world even more now.
Thank you so much. That makes me really, really happy. Again, I think that we've been working our asses off with this book, and hopefully, I mean, it will get a following, and people enjoy what we're doing. Fingers crossed.
So with this, like, you have, like, we talked about the world building, we talked about this book. Where do you get these ideas where you're like, obviously we talked a little bit about Hunt Kill Repeat, but like Battle Cats and Wolvenheart, how do you process like trying to figure out what ideas you want to dive into and explore?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I think that I try to put out stuff that really excites me. That growing up, like really, really touch my fibers. So whether it's Battle Cats, and for some reason a lot of people are like, oh, Battle Cats, oh, Thundercats, and believe me, after a few years, I would never find like the connection. I was like, oh, okay, I see the connection now. But it was like, no, there's no connection. Battle Cats was more supposed to be King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table, in this like rich world that you can actually pepper a little bit of Game of Thrones, a little bit of Lord of the Rings, also the passion for role playing games and Dungeons and Dragons are also like all peppered through the material. But it was more that than anything else. So again, big passion of mine. All the things that I just mentioned. Woven Heart, I always had a real soft spot for the traditional monsters such as Dracula, Frankenstein, um, Dorian Gray, all those stuff that I really wanted to like tackle a story. So I think that every single time that I work on a book is because I really are passionate about some aspects of the book that you see like all over the material is because, oh, this guy really likes this stuff. Also, how they say, I mean, the writers start to stick to what you know. I mean, all the stuff that you see is stuff that I grew up with, that I was really devouring all the material. So I feel confident enough to try to put it on the page.
Yeah, it makes sense too. Of like you said, of where you pull things, and you mentioned dungeons and role playing game, Dungeons and Dragons role playing games and stuff with Battlecat. Then I'm like, holy cow, that's exactly what the first volume felt like. Of you're going on a quest, and it's like, oh, this character decides to go do this. You're like, oh, this is a bad choice. Like, and it
Mm-hmm.
fits
Mm-hmm.
so well with kind of these universes, and so I love that. Just kind of pick apart now, hunt and kill, repeat to see kind of where that transpires. So you talked about your love for Greek mythology. I'm guessing like Clash of Titans and stuff like that. This idea of the gods feeling, abandoned by the people because of technology. Is that kind of like a look
Mm-hmm.
at how our world has been, of like how we're so enthralled with technology that you're like, man, I'm gonna use this to make it a revenge story.
Absolutely. Because it was like, okay, if you're gonna throw in the gods and then you're gonna give them reason enough to try to actually come down and invade Earth or enslave humanity, however you want to put it, it would be like, why? So part of what Zeus, which is leading this charge against the humans in the book, is kind of like, okay, you guys have forgotten about the gods. You guys are not praying to us. You guys are not acknowledging our existence. Why? Because actually technology has consumed your petty lives. I'm talking like Zeus now. So and a lot of the things that that he goes about, but also he sees this as a threat. It being like, man, these guys have actually um, weapons of mass destruction and everything that they're doing with technology and AI. So eventually, I mean, this is probably going to come and bite us in the rear.
Yeah.
So why don't we take charge right now, teach them a lesson of really who's in charge, and also take away all these things. But the hypocrisy from them is that they enslave humanity, but they also keep using certain technology to their advance to highlight their propaganda, to build the avatars, all that stuff. So it's kind of like really, who are these gods? Who are this beings that supposedly are in charge? Uh, but what is it that they're preaching? So that's a little bit of where you're gonna see in the material.
I love it. So I know it can kind of be a loaded question sometimes because it depends on a whole bunch of factors. But is this a universe that you plan to tell a lot of stories on, or is this kind of like, no, I want it to be a contained story, just a one volume, or like I want to kind of see how it goes, and I could go for a long time in this universe.
Again, also great question. We do have a lot of story, and
Yeah,
we really want to continue. I mean, it would be a dream to make it like an ongoing series,
yeah,
or at least that you can have probably three trade paperbacks out of this. I think that's a sweet spot for any decent series. But unfortunately, right now is that we are tied to how popular the series
right.
can get. So right now we have a plan, which is like, okay, if 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 we need to end the series by issue 6, I mean, we can. But if we see that the series is starting to get traction and it's got a bunch of fans, rooting for the story, then there's a way that I can just pivot and then continue the story. And yeah, man, what we have planned is it's really, really interesting. So hey, fingers crossed that we can continue.
Right. So is 6 issues kind of where the main goal to
Yes.
originally start for a trade for you? Okay.
Yes, that's kind of like the standard for Mad Cave Studios. I think that we just go for 6, but also there are some stories which actually hit 5. There's others that hit 4. I mean, it just depends. But again, I think that the sweet spot is 6. It gets you a lot of content, more bang for your buck. Also, the first issue of Hunky Repeat is going to be a double-sized issue. So I think that we're trying to give fans or anybody that picks up the series a little bit more.
Yeah, I was gonna say something, and I completely forgot about that reading. I'm like, this was absolutely a thick book. I was like, and I think because I read it digitally, like it almost, and I was so just ingrained in it, like that I didn't even think about it. So I looked at the page. I'm like, that seems like a high page. What was the mindset that
yes
for doing a double page issue, double series basically for this?
Well, 2 reasons. One, again, we always want to try, and if you take a look at most of my books, again, I always try to give readers a little bit more for what they're paying, especially with issue 1. I think that issue 1 is really where you come out of the gate, and you have to come out of the gate swinging. Also, when I did the first pass for the story, and I was talking to Chris Fernandez about this, I felt that you needed more. You really needed more to try to get a little bit more invested. So I was like, hey, why don't we even push it a little bit further? We're going to give also the fans a little bit more for what they're paying. So it was a win-win. I mean, we kind of like killed 2 birds once. So.
And I think it was a brilliant move because, as I'm reflecting on and not giving anything away, obviously, because I want people to go out and enjoy. There's a part in halfway through the book where I'm like, now I look back, I'm like, oh, yeah, you probably could have ended issue 1 right there. But what you then add that the tail end of you get into the meat of where the story's going now. Like that would have been a great setup and say, okay, cool, issue 2, we're going to get into that. But you're like, no, I want to get right into that meat and hook you right off the bat because now that I'm like, it's fun to have these conversations because now I'm reflecting, I'm like, oh yeah, you absolutely could have just wrapped it up right there on it. And I'm like, but now I'm even more invested in than I was because I know a little bit of where you're going with the story, by seeing how you do it with that second issue, basically in that.
And you're absolutely right. And at first, I mean, if we wouldn't have done that, again, the series would probably ended up being your first start 7 issues. But now, again, and a lot of people would just be like, oh, but you can sell more issues, this and that. Not what we're going for. I mean, what we really want is for you to get invested, for you to actually enjoy the story, and that you feel that your hard-earned money is being like, oh, great, this guy's really got my back. So
well, and I love that approach because I feel like in this industry you have to kind of think outside the box a little bit sometimes and try some different things because you're right. If you have 7 issues and you sell more, all 7 issues, like it's great. But if you don't hook the reader to get to 7, you might have that drop off and stuff. So like I think it's a really smart, to say, look, no, we're going to give a little bit more in this first part to then make sure the readership is hooked because I've talked to enough creators, I've talked to enough publishers that know that drop off from issue 1 to issue 2 is huge.
It's huge, and the problem is because a lot of people don't know. Like, oh, okay, first issue, fine, and you go with the collective aspect of it, and okay, but really people don't know what the series is going to be like. So I get it. Retailers are going to take they're taking a chance on you, especially for the amount of content that is out there nowadays. So always issue 2 is going to have a drop. Always, always, always. So what we try to do is basically just like, okay, try to ramp up the marketing as much as possible so you guys, and you can tell your retailer, no, you know what, I'm actually invested. Don't worry about it. We're not going to leave you hanging with this book. But yeah, that's really the wishful thinking that we go into this.
I love it. We've talked about Hunky Repeat a lot. When's it coming out? So people are watching this video or listening to the podcast can check it out.
Yes, it's coming out March 1st, 2023. So yeah, the date is almost upon us. So we're super excited about it. So I don't know. I don't know.
I love it, gang. I'm telling you, checking it out. I'm if you can't tell that I'm excited for this universe and this series, then I don't know what's going on because I'm super excited. So y'all should check it out for sure. So Mark, let me, I hate to ask this because like you're so enthralled in this. Like, is there other stuff that you're kind of working on that or is your main focus 100% right now hunt, kill, repeat, or is there some other irons in the fire?
There's always something in my back pocket. Like again, like I always want to keep on telling stories. I have actually two more that are on its initial stages.
Okay.
But I'm always thinking and always trying to like come up with the next story. But in the meantime, because at Mad Cave I have different hats, like the creative side of things, the writing,
Yeah.
the building, the making comics. It's completely part of my DNA, but also running the publisher. So sometimes I'm torn between the two areas, and sometimes I wish that I had more time to do one or the other, but I can't. So for now, I'm just gonna focus on Hunt Kill Repeat,
Yep.
see how that goes, try to promote the book as much as humanly possible, and yeah, and keep trying to run a healthy publisher.
Yeah. Well, and y'all are, and I mean, what just Tales of Niham just came out recently, like which has been
Hmm.
talk about a great series, and so you guys are putting. If you aren't familiar with Mad Cave Studios, y'all, you're missing out on some great books.
Yes, I think that we have had a strong lineup recently. I mean, Legacy of Violence, Nature's Labyrinth, Dolly in the Dark, Tales of Nottingham. Now we're gonna go with Hunt Kill Repeat. Also, Don't Spit in the Wind, and then we're gonna come with Exorcists Never Die. So those books, I know that it's a lot, but again, you can check our website, see what the upcoming titles are. I think that we've trying to keep up I don't know, the quality of the books and the creators that we're bringing to join us at Mad Cave are stellar. And if you're happy with that, this is really how we're gonna keep on riding this crazy train.
Yeah. And gang, I'll have links to some of the other interviews in this that I've talked about with Mad Cave creators because like I said, we have David, we've had Shane on talking about Nottingham. I had Joe on who's writing Dahlia in the Dark. Like so it's you guys got great talent. Mark, where can people follow you and kind of stay up with what you're doing and creating?
Sure. I think that the place to follow us is madcavestudios.com. Sign up to our newsletter. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram. That's where I'm at. I'm at Mark London MCS. If you want to check us out, follow everything that we're doing. But the best thing that you guys can do if you want to keep on current on everything Mad Kid is just sign up to the newsletter.
Yep. Highly recommend that. Again, I'll have the links to that newsletter and stuff or Mad Cave stuff so you can sign up and guys, don't be sleeping on it. I'm telling you, Hunt Kill Repeat, you're gonna love it. Mark, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to just talk about comics with me.
No, thank you for having me, Greg. And again, big shout out to you because again, your time is valuable and you shouting out independent comic publishers. I mean, it means the world to us. So big
Absolutely.
props to you and your challenge, everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, gang, go support Mad Cave, go support Hunt Kill Repeat. And with that being said, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.